Hey, what is up guys, Gypsy, and we are back here today with more ITL action. This week we are going up against Nick, aka RecklessBat, in week 6 of the ITL. And Nick is a guy we faced a few times in a couple of the seasons that we've played here in the ITL, and every time we face Nick has some pretty innovative prep. I do enjoy facing him because it's never a dull game. You know, it's always he always brings some kind of innovation, which I really do enjoy. He's a very solid builder in my opinion. I think like he's a solid player too, but I feel like his building is one of his strongest traits when it comes to the format. So yeah, he's definitely a fun guy to face, and he's a really chill dude just in general. So always good to face against Nick. And as you can see here, he has the zygarde, which is a massive threat to pretty much any team, just because of how versatile it can be. But yeah, mainly the fact that arrows is broken, and my arrows resist, as you can see here, is the superior. Obviously I've got things that naturally can take hits from the zygarde, you know, stuff like scissor, gliscor, seismitoad, even lax do it all pretty well. Zygarde isn't like tremendously strong unless it's banned or it's set up, but you know, that being said, like, that thing can snowball out of control pretty quickly if you don't pay it the respect it deserves. And to kind of complement that, Nick has a ton of threats on his team, and he has Veil. So he's got the Alolan Ninetales, which is a pretty crazy part of a setup on like Zygarde and Necrozma. And then he's got manphy on his team as well. So he's got a pretty setup heavy squad with Mega Houndoom. As you see, he's got the Houndoom there, that is indeed mega. And he's got some solid rockers in Cobalion, Necrozma. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting game. He's also got Miltank as well, which is an underrated rocker for sure. But yeah, he's brought, as you see, he's brought the 6 on screen. So I'm thinking probably rocks Cobalion with offensive Necrozma. He doesn't really have a ton of reason to run defensive Necrozma here, because it doesn't really check anything by my whole Lucha defensively very well. All my other breakers can kind of take it on. So I'm definitely thinking an offensive Necro here. I also don't have a dark type on my team currently, so he could well and truly have just spammed like psychic versus my team. So we'll have to see about that when we jump into the game. But the team I've brought today is a pretty fun squad. I do have the Z Tapu Koko with the Electrium Z. It's a special Koko this week, nothing crazy. We have I believe this was a mixed def Gliscor. We have a rocks Seismitoad, pretty defensive as well. We have a fat Sizzle. I think I have hidden power ice on this actually to 2 echo max HP Zygarde, which is pretty clean. And then we have a glare Serp, which can honestly, like, if I can paralyze Crobat with the glare on a switch in, and I can remove Houndoom from the game or glare that thing too, this Serp, because I do have hidden power ice, it can really just clean up the game. So that's looking to be a very solid wink on here if I can identify Scarpers and wear down the Electros, which I can do pretty well with my Karma and Recover or Roost Tapu Koko. And then we have Big Lax in the back. Now I've brought Curse to a couple of games this season, and yeah, Lax has really put the team on its back. But this week I'm bringing a pretty interesting defensive Lax. So it's like Recycle, Whirlwind, Toxic, and Return. I believe that's the set. And yeah, it's very solid in this match because, as you can see, nothing really appreciates getting toxic by Crobat and Cobalion. And Cobalion, whilst it is a decent switch into Lax, it takes return chip every time it comes in, if my Lax is firing for return. And it's also pressured by the rest of my squad pretty well. I can toxic stuff like a boosting Necrozma, some sort of nasty Electros set. Zygarde gets toxic and Whirlwind out. So this thing is potentially a real nuisance for his team. So we're going to jump into the match and see how it went. I'm going to lead off with my Toad, as he does lead off with his Cobalion here. Now, at a matchup, like, he may be a few things. He may be Magnet Rice, he may be Sugarberry, he might be he's like offensive with some sort of Z move. These are the things I don't know at matchup. Either way, he could also be Taunt, which is something that would prevent me from getting my rocks up turn 1. But Cobalion is a big threat to my Lax, which I just mentioned previously. It's an irritation to Serp and my Scizor as well. Even though they have superpower, it's still a bit annoying. Like, it'd be nice to weaken this thing to put it in range of other things in my team. So turn 1, I'm going to go for EQ. It also covers him taunting here, which is something that, like, if he taunts and then makes the play out to something like Electros, like I just lose a ton of momentum in the first 2 turns of the game if I go for rocks. So going for EQ is my play. I set up rocks on a lot on his team. Houndoom I set up rocks on. I am Rindo Berry as well, so I set up rocks versus Electros too. So yeah, I'm pretty safe to just EQ here as he reveals Calm Mind. So definitely glad I got the damage off with EQ here. This tells me a few things. This is one of his Z move uses along with his I think it's his Cobalion and his manphy, the Aristo Z move uses. So this this Calm Mind and this lack of sugar really implies that he is Z move, and just based on the nature of my team, I feel like he's going to be Z fighting, because that allows him to break past Scizor, it allows him to break past Snorlax, obviously, because he is Calm Mind. He's obviously not going to, well, chances are he's not going to be like a mixed set with like Calm Mind and like close combat or something like that. So he's probably running Focus Blast, which would allow him to get through stuff like a bulky Scizor, and having the Z move, having the Z fighting would allow him to not have to risk the focus miss, which is a real potential issue for wearing down my team if he does miss. And it's ultimately just his strongest attack versus the majority of my Fatmon. So I do expect him to be Z fighting here, and Seismitoad is useful. Like, I want rocks up this game if I can, and if anything, Seismitoad is useful, and I know I can live a +1 Focus Blast, but I cannot live a +1 Z Focus Blast. So I'm going to predict him to waste the Z move here, as EQ was comfortably doing enough to 2KO him. So I'm going to go out to my Gliscor, the only thing that can really, like, my Tapu Koko could have chewed a Z Focus Blast, and then scared him out the next turn with like a Z move of my own, or just a Wild Charge or a Dazzling Gleam or something. But ultimately it wasn't worth Koko taking the damage, because Koko is a massive it's a massive cog in my win condition in this game, whereas Gliscor, as nice as it is more expendable in this matchup, just based on what he's brought and based on how effective Koko can be here. So I'm going to go out to my specially defensive Gliscor. I'm like mixed F, but my Spit F comes through there. We take 56 from a +1 Z move, so that's a Z Focus Blast. That's pretty impressive. Like, Cobalion's not the most strongest thing in the world, but even so, the way we chewed that is pretty clean. I do love Gliscor in the format. As now I am going to stay in here and sack my Gliscor off to the Flash Cannon. I had no true reason to switch there. Like, sacking Gliscor was a play that like I'm happy. I stand by making. Had I gone to Seismitoad, because I'm not lefties, because I'm Rindo instead of lefties, a +1 Flash Cannon, depending on rolls, into a max roll from Focus Blast would have taken out my Toad, and I essentially would have wasted 2 Mons for the price of just popping the Z move on this Cobalion. So I wasn't about to make that kind of early game misplay. So I'm going to let my my Gliscor go down here and then bring up my Koko, as this forces him to go out into his Electros here as I can, just fire for T-Bolt, start chipping this thing down. This thing is indeed max HP Assault Vest, as he is going to go for the Super Fang here. And my Dazzling Gleam does very little, but I am chipping him down, and this is one of the things that stands in the way of Scizor, of Superior more importantly. So wearing this thing down is going to be important, as this turn I can just roost up. The only way this Electros poses a real threat to me is if he's Acid Spray, and if that's the case, then I can always go out into my Toad, assuming he wants to keep spamming that, and proceed to get my rocks up. So he is going to go for the U-turn here, so we come out of this situation at a pretty high amount of health, as now he's going to go into his Houndoom. Now this is an interesting spot, right? Because if I am Z move, which I am, if I'm Z Electric here, it's the only way I can kill a Mega Houndoom from full, and he can certainly just double back to Electros, scouting for the Z move. If I go for Volt Switch as well, like versus the Houndoom, assuming I had it, it would have dealt a ton of damage, and I would have been able to switch out into my Seismitoad freely. So I didn't want to waste my Z move there, because it would have been, it literally would have wasted it, assuming he makes the correct play, which is doubling to Electros or even going hard Zygarde on the Z move, on the electric Z move there. But Electros is safer just on the off chance that I'm Z Dazzling Gleam. So I'm gonna make the hard switch out into my Toad, which not only catches him making a smart switch back into his Electros or his Zygarde, it also catches him if he wants to stay in here and fire off a Fire Blast or a Sludge Bomb or something, because Toad will eat it up and I'll be able to get my rocks up as a result. But Nick does choose to make the double back out into his eel, and this is really nice because now we'll be able to get our rocks up, and with rocks up, his Houndoom is going to be really pressured every time it comes in. But more importantly, the Crobat will be put in range of a Leaf Storm into a Hidden Power Ice after rocks. So pretty much if I can glare that once, even if you roost up back to full, the next time my Serp is in and I manage to Leaf Storm, I can fire off a Hidden Power Ice and take him out, depending on his spread. Like if he's like max HP, if he's like max Spadef max HP, it's a different story, but then he's considerably, like, that's not a set he's bringing to this game, and if that is the case, I'll be able to determine that by the amount of damage that Leaf Storm does, but we'll get into that. So I do get up my rocks here as he goes for the Super Fang, and I'm just going to knock off his Assault Vest, which is massive for the rest of my team, as he just wants to stay in and hit knock off this turn, knocking off my Rindo, as we've just kind of established that this Electros is walled by my Koko here. So I'm going to go back out into it as he does choose to go for the U-turn here. So Koko's still at a nice amount of health even with that crit, and he is going to bring in the Houndoom here. So now if Houndoom wants to switch out now that he's taken that rocks damage, I'm totally fine with him scouting for the Z move and me potentially even wasting it on the Zygarde or the Electros, because Houndoom has taken the amount of damage I need for it to go down to Bullet Punch in a few rock switch-ins to return to anything from my Toad. And if he switches in one more time on rocks, he's going to guarantee go down to T-Bolt. T-Bolt's a roll at this stage depending on how much health he has, but I am just going to fire off his Z move just to ensure that this thing is taken out, and that is going to be the case as Houndoom drops. So now his only real speedy mon that can outspeed my Serp is his Crobat, and as I mentioned, we got the Lure in the Glare, so he's going to go into his Necrozma here, and I'm just going to hard out into my Snorlax as he reveals Photon Geyser, and this does a lot. But the Photon Geyser, for those of you guys who don't know, can either be special or physical depending on the amount of the way you've distributed the EVs into Necrozma. So if you're like a more physically based, but if your physical attack is higher than your special attack, it's going to be a physical move, and vice versa with special attack. So that Photon Geyser does a ton for special Necrozma, but it does very little for physical, and I see a lack of item. He's not like physically defensive physical Photon Geyser with leftovers or anything like that. I kind of knew at this point that he was special, and that was Specs Photon Geyser, which makes a lot of sense versus my teams because I don't have a Psychic immunity, so that's pretty threatening. But Big Lax chews that up pretty nicely as he is going to go for a Photon Geyser once again. And the really nice thing about Photon Geyser is that it only has 8 PP, so he's already used 2, and Lax has established itself as a pretty solid switch into this thing, so that's not bad. So right here I am going to go for the return, getting that nice chip off on this Specs Necrozma, which is going to put it in range guaranteed of stuff like T-Bolt, Leaf Storm, even if it is like a really bulky variant. So this turn I am going to recycle as he fires off yet another Photon Geyser, and this is going to leave my Lax at a very nice amount of health and burn another. So he's only got 5 left, which is really nice, as that's pretty much his strongest way of hitting my team. He's going to Photon Geyser again, as I am just going to spam recycle at this stage. I want to get my berry back to ensure that I can come in on multiple things on his team during the game, as he's now used 4, so he has 4 left. He uses his 5th here, so he's got 3 left, as I just recycle up once again. Now I am going to go for the return, I believe, as he does go into his Cobalion. So we're chipping this thing, it's getting lower and lower. It only does like 15.6%, but it's not a lot at all, as now he goes to the Focus Blast. Now I'm going to stay in and go for the whirlwind this turn, because I felt like he could either calm mind up here, expecting me to go out into anything on my team, or flash cannon, predicting my Coco. And even if he did focus blast, it did a max of 49.5%, assuming he was max special attack. And we chew that up, and we pop out Berry. But unfortunately, he gets the Spit F drop, which is going to mean that if his Cobalion comes in once again on my Snorlax, the roll is like it's like a mid roll for him to take me out with a focus blast if he can next at -1, and that's not something I want to risk, obviously. So I'm just going to recycle up here as he does go back out into his Cobalion. I'm going to get my Berry back. If he hadn't got the Spit F drop, I could have just repeated that process, whirlwinded him once again. And if he hit a focus blast, my Berry would have popped, you know, just repeat. But because he got that Spit F drop, it does force me out, as I'm going to have to go and sack off my Toad here, unfortunately. But this is going to bring back in my Serp, and this is really nice because he's in a situation where he can either leave this thing in to get damage off of my Serp, but I can glare it and pretty much remove it as any sort of threat to the rest of the game. He can sack off his Eel, which I don't think is the play, given that he has Crobat in the back. He can go hard out into... Nah, he's never going hard out into Zygarde or Necrozma. He's either sacking Eel here, or he's going hard Crobat. Either way, me glaring here is my play. I don't think he's going to stay in with Cobalion, and even if he does, glare is a fine play here, as it pretty much cripples that thing. But the reason I don't think he's going to stay in with this is because Snorlax looks like it can kind of 6-0 or just take on the rest of his team. So I feel like he will want to preserve this, as he does make the switch out into Crobat, which is a pretty naturally great check to Superior, as he does catch the paralysis there. So the Serp set really coming through, and like I mentioned earlier, even though this Crobat healed up to max health, now that it's paralyzed, and next time Superior comes in and I fire off a Leaf Storm, this thing is going to be in range to go down to a +2 hidden power ice from my Serp, so that's really nice. But my Lax is going to come back in, and I am just going to return this turn, I believe. Yeah, I just fire for a return and knock out the Eel, so he now has no more sacks to the Superior, as he's going to bring back our Cobalion, and I believe I do just Whirlwind here, as he does go for the Flash Cannon and pops my Berry. And I can now stay in and fire off a Recycle here with my Lax, as he's going to lock himself into Moonlight, actually. So he specs with Moonlight, which is cool. That covers, I guess, if he gets knocked off, he still has some longevity, which I can appreciate. And now he's going to get Whirlwinded out into his Zygarde here. So this turn I am just going to return. Sorry, he doesn't get Whirlwinded. He hards out into his Zygarde because he was locked into Moonlight there with his Necrozma. And this is going to allow me to get some nice return chip off on this Zygarde, and he actually reveals to be lefties, I think. No, he wasn't leftovers. Sorry, he wasn't leftovers, but he reveals Pain Split, which is really interesting. This implies it's more of a defensive set, as an offensive Zygarde doesn't really have the move slots that run Pain Split here. And I feel like if he was offensive, he would have just taken this opportunity to attack. But yeah, he clicks Pain Split. They're pretty interesting, as I am just going to get the Toxic off, and this essentially neuters this Zygarde as a threat now, because he's Pain Split. He's not going to be Pain Split Rest. He's Coil. He's going to be 1,000 Arrows, and he could be like Extreme Speed or something, some kind of other coverage perhaps. And this essentially means that my Sizzle can sit in front of this all day, as he does fire off the Coil. So I think this turn I am going to, what do? I think I Whirlwind here. I Whirlwind out as he brings in his Crobat. At this point, like, nothing really can take on my Snorlax. Even plus 1,000 arrows just did 57. So Snorlax is chewing hits, as his Crobat is going to, I guess, fish for the poison here, and he's going to go for the Sludge Bomb, as it does very little. And I am just going to Whirlwind him out once again, bring in the Zygarde. I want chip versus this thing. But right here I am going to switch out into my Sizzle, as he makes the 1,000 arrows play here, and he gets a crit, which kind of sucks. This forces me to roost as opposed to being able to Mega and fire off an attack. But that's alright. I'm in pretty firm control of this game at this stage, so he's going to go into his Necrozma here. And I am going to roost up with Sizzle. Now Specs Necrozma, he's going to be carrying Heatwave, and we've already established that Snorlax is a fantastic check to this thing, so I'm going to go out to Lax here as he does reveal the Heatwave. And we chew that up and it does 25. I'm just going to be able to recycle once more. Unfortunately, he gets the burn here, which is really going to suck for Lax in terms of the damage you can deal with return. But on the flip side of that, it means I can't get poisoned by the Crobat's Sludge Bomb, which would be dealing an additional 6% per turn, more than the burn would. So it's not the end of the world. A bit annoying, but what can you do? As Lax is going to recycle up once more. And this turn, he is going to go out to his bat, as I think I do just fire for Toxic here, wanting to put that Necro on a timer, but he's going to bring in Bat, and I am just going to go for the return here. I want to scout out this Bat's moveset. He's shown to have Sludge Bomb, Roost. If he's a Nasty Plot set, I want to know. Like, I want to determine what he is, and I have no reason not to just stay in with Lax and just start recovering, recycling up and whirlwinding him out, phasing him around. Kibalion can't beat my Lax, which is pretty funny, as he is going to get whirlwinded out into his Zygarde. And it's a pretty solid spot. I'm going to go out to Serp here because him going for 1,000 arrows was a pretty fair play there, and at this point I wanted to speed up the end game because, I knew how I was going to win this, and I wanted it to kind of be over because I felt like his Crobat could just kind of sit there all day and just roost up. And whilst it wouldn't be beating me down, it just would have been prolonging the game. So I just need to grab a drink of water there. And yeah, so this stage, whether he went for Coil, Pain Split, 1,000 arrows, Extreme Speed, like my Serp was pretty safe. So he's going to go for the Pain Split here. And now, like I mentioned earlier, Leaf Storm into Hidden Power Ice essentially wins me the game at this point, assuming I land the Leaf Storm versus the Crobat. But unfortunately, as you're going to see, it's just too hard for my Serp. He just can't hit those Leaf Storms, and that sucks, because this game would have been over right then. It's fine, like, it doesn't suck too much, because I could still put myself in that situation once again, but it's just going to prolong the game, as you're going to see here. So he's going to go for the Air Slashes, and this is when the madness begins. This Crobat is going to flinch my Snorlax down, I think, like 5 turns in a row. You're going to see. He gets the first flinch. My Berry pops. He gets the second flinch, and I'm going to put it on fast because it takes a while. He gets the third flinch. He's going to get parried here. I'm going to get my Recycle. He's going to Air Slash me again. He gets a 4th flinch. Air Slash once again. I think, does he flinch me here? No, he doesn't flinch me there. Alright. They're not all in a row, but it's still pretty funny how many flinches he gets. Another flinch, I think that's the 5th. He's going to roost up once again as I Recycle. And he's going to slash once again as I get flinched again, so that's a 6th. And we were kind of laughing as we were playing because it was just kind of unheard of, this many flinches. And he gets another flinch. Obviously this doesn't really matter, doesn't really change the outcome of the game. another flinch, I think that's like 7 or 8 by now. But it's certainly prolonging the game, and I'm just going to whirlwind him out here as he brings in his Kibalion. Now I'm out of range of a Focus Blast. Like I mentioned, Focus Blast max roll is 49%, but I didn't want to risk a crit there when I don't need to. I can go out into my Tapu Koko, which capitalizes on him going for a Calm Mind, or clicking Focus Blast, and of course he has the hit Focus Blast, and this man just flinched like 8 Air Slashes, so his luck's got to be running out about now, but he does hit, so my man Nick is lucky. As I'm going to Roost up as he goes for the Flash Cannon. I can Calm Mind, technically I can Calm Mind up on this thing and just win right here, because his Crobat is parried. But I don't want to risk crits because, yeah, Nick is getting real lucky. So I'm just going to switch out into my Snorlax here as he does bring in his Necro. Now, reason I didn't stay in there and T-Bolt is because he was still out of range, potentially, depending on bulk, how much bulk he had in this Necro, and he doesn't really need to run a ton of speed versus me, but he probably is realistically, but no reason to lower differential in this endgame if I don't need to. I'm just going to go into Big Lax, who can just recycle up. And I think at this stage, I do just go back hard out into Serp, because we've established this that this zygarde can't really touch me, and I can just leave Storm here and proceed to get to +2. He's going to go into his Crobat. My Hidden Power Ice is going to drop him, and his Necrozma is going to come in here and drop to the Leaf Storm. So ultimately, yeah, Superior still won this game. It just took about 25 turns longer than it probably should have, but you know, that's Leaf Storm. Sometimes it's going to miss. Yeah, definitely a fun game against Nick. I thought he played it really well. I thought he brought some really cool sets. The Cobalion was a really neat bring here, because it was a way of getting around my physically defensive walls like Gliscor, Scizor. So yeah, definitely a solid bring. I thought Specs Necrozma was really interesting. I like that a lot versus me. If I hadn't prepped such a fat Lax, that could have been yeah, a real pain for my team to check, especially because I have Heat Wave. And then yeah, I'm pretty interested. The Zygarde set was kind of interesting. I don't really know what that set was aimed at doing, but Coil, 1000 Arrows, Pain Split. Don't know the 4th move on it, but either way, pretty innovative build. Nick never fails to bring some heat. So that was a fun game in the ITL. Moving on to week 7 next week, I think, and we're going to be facing off against Novo once again, who's one of my divisional opponents. That should be a fun one. He's got Megiana. We faced this team earlier on in the season, and I came out with a big win there, so hopefully we'll be able to repeat that. Hope you guys are pumped for that. Drop a like if you enjoyed, and let me know what you guys thought of the match in the comments, and I'll catch you guys next time.